welcome to another episode of the Alley Report. Today we're talking with Lawrence Kithcart, author of Silence is Deafening and A Perfect Crime, out from Punk Noir Press. Thanks for being on here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Um, with um, Silence is Deafening, you talked about it was mainly execution was the focus of that story.
Yeah, I had submitted a couple of times to them, and then the idea came to me where I could kind of, hopefully, and I guess it worked, that I could, you know, make it seem like he's getting a treatment or something, and then kind of flip it at the end. So,
Yeah, it was a good and it was a good twist in it, and it's impressive with because this was like a microfiction story that you have the setup and the reveal in just so few words.
yeah, it's really hard. I mean, I just started writing stories maybe 6, 7 months ago. So, and I don't think any of my early ones were any good, but with that one, it just came to me, and I don't know, just people seem to like it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I found that like you have the stories that you really have to work on, you really have to struggle with, and then there's some that they just come to you almost instantly, just like almost you've got the whole thing. That's always
Yeah, I
nice when
think
that
I wrote it
happens.
in like 30 minutes or something.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I especially think with some of the microfiction stuff, it's almost like that immediate inspiration. That's what it needs to be. It needs to be whatever hit you like lightning needs to hit the reader like lightning. So, at least for
yeah,
me, I feel like my best micro stories were like it was a 30-minute writing session. Then you tweak it and perfect it, but initially it was all there.
yeah. I've had a few where I kind of tried to write it like something longer, and then it ended up being a micro. And then when I went back and read it later, I was like, yeah, this is just garbage, and just delete it from the phone and everything. But
Oh, do you write yours on your phone?
yeah, I got the Notes app. Everything's
Oh,
on the Notes app.
that's awesome. I've interviewed a couple writers on here that do that, and I just can't like even when I'm just like, oh, I have an idea, I'm going to jot a note down. I don't know why I'm like I struggle with writing on the phone. I think it's great if you can because it's everywhere with you.
Yeah, I'll do it on my break at work, or just if we're riding down the road and something comes to me, because you see a bunch of weird stuff when you're traveling around. You know, that's usually why something pops into my head as I see some weird dude doing something, in a parking lot or something like that, and that's where it comes from.
Yeah, it's
It's
like
always
you
interesting
see
to hear people's inspirations for stories.
yeah like you see a piece it's like when you see the weird person doing the weird thing. It's like oh I've seen a piece of something. I've seen a hint of something, and that just gets the wheels turning.
Yeah. So what kind of happened with me when I started writing was the ideas or the weird things that would pop into my head would stick there and they wouldn't leave me alone. And I'm like, well, I'll just try writing them down. And, you know, my wife's really supportive of it. She's always, first reader, you
Oh,
know,
amazing.
and she'll tell me, she's like, it's not that good. I'm like, okay.
Hey, honest feedback, like I don't know, I feel like people who can give good feedback are the ones where they've told you everything wrong with your story, but you feel excited to fix it. Like you don't feel
Right.
like they've hit you in the stomach or anything. You're just like, oh, I'm ready to fix this and make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. Coming from her, it's coming from a good place. And I know that. So she's like, you just need to keep writing, and I'll show her something and she's like, oh yeah, submit it. And so that's when I do usually.
And you talked about seeing strange things on your job. Like what, if you don't mind my asking, like what is your like day job that puts you out and about?
I work at a metal manufacturing plant, but I work in an office and I log testing.
Okay.
So I hear the word nuclear a lot, which just gets me. And but just random conversations of people that are walking by and stuff like that. But it's more, when we're out and about, you know,
Yeah.
driving around, or we go to the mall every once in a while. It's one that my wife and I used to work at 20 something years ago, and it's pretty much dead. But you see some strange stuff there. We always go to the Barnes and Noble because it's books.
Oh, yeah.
But and just odd things that happen around here because there's 7 of us and we have 5 dogs and a bunch of cats, so there's always a bunch of weird stuff.
Yeah, as far as my day job now is it's like a small marketing company and I write blogs and things. But I feel like I go back to the well of when I worked construction and for like the city and parks departments and things like that. That's where I go back because it was like weird shit all the time.
Yeah, yeah. My Twitter handle is Amity Vandal, but then above that it's Big Shot Django, which is like a play on a Billy Joel song. But it came from a guy I worked with in construction where he was like, "What do you want to eat for lunch?" And I'm like, "I don't know. What do you want?" He's like, and he said I had to have a Big Mac, didn't you? Because we had just heard the Billy Joel song. So, you know, and but there's so many oddities around that you can draw from, and I just never had that inspiration. I'm not creative at all, like at all. If I try and draw something, it looks like I'm being electrocuted, pretty much. But
But writing is your creative
yeah,
outlet.
apparently so.
Yeah.
I had no idea, but it is.
Hey, I mean that's what's amazing to me is that I've known writers who like, they'll I find, meet online or something and they're like, oh, I've been working on this one thing and you read it's brilliant. It's like I've been at this. They could say I've been at this for 10 years, or they could say I've been at this like you, like just a few months. And it's like it can hit you at any age, any point in your life, like just the
Right.
urge to write, to get your story out there. And I always think that's
Yeah.
fascinating.
I mean, I'm 43, so I didn't start reading for fun until I was 30, 31, something like that. I didn't enjoy it at all. And then it hit me, and I have, well, most of my books are gone because they're in storage because we're moving, but I have like 1,000 books here, and I think I have 700 on my Kindle. So for every one I read, I get 5 more somehow, but I'm just always reading short stories, sometimes at work. Hopefully the boss doesn't see this, but
Yeah, it's funny. Like I feel like sometimes people come out of school with almost just like a hatred or dislike of reading. Like when I was growing up, I read all the time and wanted to write, and my dad was just like, "No, I don't." Like they made me read stuff I didn't want to read, and it really was like way later in life, it was a realization of, oh, I can read things I want, and like I can read whatever I want to read, and it was just like that change of like, oh no, it's great. And also, I
yeah,
mean, if you're gonna be a writer and you want to write, like that's the best education there is on how to do it, what to do, what not to do.
yeah, it definitely is. You can spot things, you can learn storytelling from it. You can't, I'm not going to emulate Stephen King's ability to, tell you about a town or anything, but I've read so much of his stuff, and I think that's, one place where I got to love reading from, reading a lot of his stuff and, a lot of other things, but there were things I read when I was young that I enjoyed, like Frankenstein and Dracula, The Old Man and the Sea. But for the most part, what they made me read, it just kind of, was my way of rebelling. I was like, I don't like it. And maybe I liked it all along, and I just didn't let myself. I don't know.
And it could be that too. I know my sister taught English for years, and when she picked books in a story, she was so particular about I want something they want to read, or I want them to like, even if on the surface they're like this sucks, so secretly they love it. Secretly
Yeah,
they're engaged, and they want to see how this ends.
well, maybe. I read a book in college called Growing Up, and it was an autobiography. It was a Pulitzer Prize winner, I think. But I really liked it too. But it was never anything that interested me, and I think I was just more into drinking all the time and you know watching movies and stuff like that. But as I got older, it hooked me, and it's had me ever since. And I still can't believe I write anything that anybody would read.
Yeah, but I mean,
But
yeah, you have two published pieces. Like, I mean, that just shows that inspiration can hit you, and that you can do something with it. You can
yeah,
get your stories out there.
I think the strangest thing is I've got 2 things out on submission right now, and you're just checking your email. Did
Oh yeah,
Submittable send you something? And it's an
yeah.
odd feeling to have something out there, and you know do they like it? Are they going to tell me, they're going to block me and tell me never to send anything in again?
Yeah, just remember, if even if they reject it, like talking with people that have made, edited their own anthologies and run presses and stuff, they talk about so many times the story they really loved. For some reason, they had to let it go, or someone that was right there on the line. So, you know,
Yeah,
every rejection was, maybe it was just the last one cut. It barely made it, but
right.
gotta
I've
stay
got one
positive.
of
It's
the ones
numbers
I've
game.
got. I'm sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, one of the ones I have out now, it got rejected the first time I sent it, but I got a really good feedback in the email, that they enjoyed it. It just didn't fit. And it's the first one that I've put out somewhere else. All the other ones are just sitting there. I don't know what to do with them because I wrote them for a specific call and they're really short, but there's a lot of places that do microfiction and I never really knew that.
Yeah, it's become really popular, and also getting personalized feedback. I feel like that's almost as good as an exception, really, is having it accepted, because that just doesn't it very rarely happens.
Yeah.
Um,
I screenshotted the email and sent it to my wife. I'm like, oh, good, they said. And she's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm great. Just hopefully somebody one day will take it. And if not, at least I know, some place that I wanted to trust it with actually enjoyed it. So it means a
yeah,
lot.
that's in my playwriting days. I got two rejections that were like personalized ones, and I've kept those because that was the same thing. They almost, I put some wind in my sails to keep going.
Yeah.
Um, and also, your first story, it was, talked about execution, and the next one, A Perfect Crime, is like, a classic revenge story. And I feel like for crime fiction, a revenge story is like a haunted house story for horror. It's like, it doesn't matter how many times it's done or who's done it, like we want more of it.
Right. I know the basic premise. I'm sure I'm the millionth person to do it. Two brothers that don't like each other, but I just kind of tried to make the one that was narrating it, maybe a little bit of a moron, so he didn't really pull it off very well. And the call was a good death, so I'm like, I can't let anybody, everybody's got to go, basically.
Yeah. And I liked it because it really showed, like, because the class thing about revenge is, if you're going out for revenge, dig two graves. And I thought the story is a perfect example of that. Like, and also like of that obsession level of what are you willing to sacrifice to get your revenge, to get your justice. And it's a good story. People listening should check it out. Perfect Crime, Punk Noir Press. But yeah, it's a great revenge story.
Thank you. Yeah,
Um,
he went all out. He didn't hold back. That's for sure.
that's what you want. Yeah, like your
Yeah.
own safety doesn't matter anymore. It's the mission.
Right.
Um, well, you talked about, like, that you have all your books and some of them are in storage. I see a lot of writers joke about hoarding books, but I've always felt, it's more like building a library.
Yeah.
I've always liked to look
I'll
at it like
never
that.
read them all. I know that because there are more books that come out, and I don't know how many pre-orders I have, but yeah, it's if that day comes when I can just sit and read all the time, I'm covered.
Yeah. And also, it's like, those are some that I'll see as like, oh, I'm gonna want to read that one day, and it will sit on my shelf for like a year, 2, 3 years, and then one day it's like, this is the book I want. It's right here waiting
Yeah.
on me. So I'm pro hoarding books. I think we should all be
Yeah,
doing
you
that.
walk by it and the title, you see the title for the first time almost.
Yeah, and it's like, oh yeah, all right, I'm gonna read that one now.
Right.
Um, I know you just got, started with writing, but I think one of the things I've seen, like talking to writers and stuff, is trying to find the time to write and find that balance. Like, have you found that, like, a way to work in where you can write regularly?
Uh, sort of. I mean, my wife's fine if I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna work on this story and everything. If we don't have too much going on here, but I get two short breaks and then a lunch break, and I'm usually either reading or writing on my breaks at work too. So I have plenty of time to do short stuff. Got some longer ones that I'm working on, and I can kind of dip into those. But I found that me personally, I don't know how it is for anyone else, that I really need to just sit and focus on those if I'm building a bigger narrative as opposed to
Yeah,
you know under 200 words. You don't have to. really worry about building the story up too much. You're not going to get that much information in that little bit of time.
Yeah, I when I'm working on a longer work, I'm not going to work on short stories or anything else. It's going to be that focus because yeah, you have to find the time when you can, and you have to be almost in this mind frame, single-minded focus on what you're working on when it's long.
Yeah, definitely. And that's harder to come by, but you know, I've written one that I submitted and it didn't get accepted, but I think it was okay, but I can kind of pick out the things that I did wrong with that one. But it's that thing of sitting down and just, really focusing on something longer. That's definitely harder, but it's something that I could do too. So it's hard to find a balance with, you know, if you have, you've got a family and you've got all these things going and a job and all that stuff, but you can work it in, I think.
Yeah, I do the same thing, just steal the moments I can, but every now and then there'll be some reason where everybody's away and by myself, and then it's just like this is all I'm going to do. Like I'm going to sit in this chair for the next so many hours. I'm going to take full advantage of this. Um,
I
like my
always
work.
end up, oh, sorry, go ahead, go
Oh
ahead.
no, you're fine. Go ahead.
Whenever I have that little bit of time where the house is quiet and everything, I always end up like scrolling Twitter or playing a video game. When
Yeah,
I've marked that time specifically for, I'm gonna work on this story, and then nothing comes to me. So I think
yeah,
it has to be more spur of the moment for me right now, but I don't have any kind of rhythm yet. So, not like I hope to have someday.
yeah. I've had the times where it's like, oh, I'm gonna have a whole day, and like you said, just nothing comes to me, nothing works out, and then I'm just like, laying on the floor like it's over, it's done, like the well is dried up. Like I get real
Yeah.
melodramatic with it sometimes.
Or you end up writing something totally different that you didn't
Yeah,
have the urge to do, but that's okay too. If that inspiration comes, that's good.
yeah, and honestly, that's what I would advise people to do. It's like when you're stuck on that, just jump on another thing for a little bit. But yeah, I that single-minded focus is good in some ways and bad in others. Because then whenever I feel writer's block or something, all of a sudden I'm just like frozen, like it's over.
Yeah.
I've had a good run.
No, the career's done.
Yeah, yeah. It's like
I haven't
it's
hit that point, but you know, I'm sure I will once I get a few more things done.
oh yeah, I do that about once a year. I assume it's all over. It's like I can never convince myself like you do this like every year. You hit this moment where you're like the well's dry, I got nothing. Every year, like it's okay, just take a break. And my
I
brain's my
think,
own worst enemy.
yeah, yeah, I get I think I had imposter syndrome before I ever wrote a story. Like when I first, like, oh, I'll just start putting down ideas. And then I'm like, what are you doing? Nobody's going to read this. So I'm kind of used to that. And there's also the thing where you know, you get an idea, and if you don't write it down right away and you kind of forget it, that was the best idea you were ever going to have, but it's gone. Or you have one when you wake up at 2 in the morning for some reason and you don't get your phone out or get out a pen and paper. And it,
Yeah,
it wasn't a Pulitzer Prize winning idea, but your brain tells you,
yeah.
that was your shot.
No, I've for sure like fixed plot holes at 2 in the morning and then woke up at 6 and it's like, why? Why not just reach over to the phone and write it down?
Yeah, yeah, I've done that a few times. And but I mean, normally there's no real time or place where the idea will come to me. And most of them are just, I'll tell my wife and she'll give me the look like I've told her a bad joke. And I'm like, yeah, it wasn't that good. But
I just love you got somebody immediate that you can bounce ideas off of. Like,
yeah, yeah, I'll give her the premise for something or, write out a couple paragraphs and let her read it. And if it's supposed to be funny and she doesn't laugh, or if it's supposed to be kind of gruesome and she doesn't, curl her nose up, and I'm like, yeah, well, I need to work on
I love that. Like your look of disgust isn't enough to warrant me
that. Right.
continuing this story.
Yeah.
I can do better.
Yeah. I need that reaction from her because she's always going to be the first reader. Yeah.
Um, And so, so far your work has been focused mainly on crime stories. What drew you to that genre?
I mean, I've always read a lot of crime, well, always since I, was, a third of the way through my life or whatever when I started reading. But it's just so interesting, the way it can be like cat and mouse, or it can be something where you know what's happened and the narrator doesn't know, or there's just so many ways to go about it. And I don't know, I read a lot of horror and a lot of cosmic horror, but I feel like, you know, the worst monsters are the human monsters.
Hmm.
In most stories even. Like it is my favorite book, but the town of Derry and the people are worse than anything that Pennywise could do because
Yeah.
they're complicit and they just look the other way. So I just think that writing that human element, I've known a lot of bad people in my life, but I mean, I think we all have, but I
Hmm.
also know every bad thing that I've done too. And you can kind of just draw on, your experiences and kind of tweak them and make them worse. So I think that's kind of what drew me to it.
Yeah, and a lot of the best crime stories or novels I've read, it's the protagonist and antagonist are they're usually from like the same world. They've undergone the same pressures and like their own and the hero's only a step or two away from being the villain. It's like almost like it takes willpower to not fall that way.
Yeah, yeah, I like the anti-hero more than the do good, you know, does everything right, never breaks the rules, because that's normally not the case in real life either.
Yeah.
But and I mean, I'm a big fan of Lawrence Block, the Scutter books and stuff like that. And he's Matthew Scudder's very flawed, but he it's also interesting stories because he has to mingle with the bad people and the bad places in order to get to solve a case or to do whatever needs to be done. So I think I don't know. Maybe one day I give it a shot at writing cosmic horror, but I don't think I have the imagination for that kind of stuff.
Um, I mean, you say that now, but you may find something along the way. I feel like there's in our everyday world, there's plenty of weirdness, things that hint of spookier things beyond the veil.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. I mean, 6, 7 months ago, I wouldn't have dreamed that I'd have a story out there at all. So you never know.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing that you've found this. At this point in your life, I think it's fantastic. Like I found this new outlet for my creativity, and like I'm doing well at it. I'm getting my stories published. They're out there.
Yeah, I remember the email when I got the acceptance, and I'm reading it, and the thing is, did he send it to the wrong person? And like, no, it's got my name in it. He addressed me by my first name, and then I showed it to my wife, and she like pinched me, and I had a bruise for a while and all that stuff. But it's it's still hard to believe. But you know, that's such a great feeling to hold on to, is
Yeah,
because how fleeting it can be. I could submit 100 more stories and not get one accepted. You never
yeah,
know. So
yeah. You gotta allow yourself to enjoy the victories. Like
yeah,
enjoy. Like I got a story published. Like celebrate it. Like
right.
I'm guilty of. I always feel like I got to keep moving, so I don't think I let myself enjoy my victories. I'm just focused on the next thing, which I feel like that's not very good. Again, my brain's my worst enemy. So
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when it came out, I sent it to my mom. I sent the story to my mom right away after it was accepted because, it was like it was a set time for the call and it ended, and then I got the email and she liked it too. And she was an English major in college and she writes poetry and stuff. So she's also going to tell me whether or not she likes it. But, she's like, "Well, you got to send me the link when it's published too." And then when I open the link up, I'm like, "Yeah, that's my name." And they spelled it right and everything, you know.
that's not always a guarantee. Sometimes you might you slip up on the name.
Yeah, but I would have forgiven that. That would have been
Yeah,
just fine.
it's like worth it. We're gonna
But
move past it. This is my new pen
yeah,
name.
yeah, then I'll change my name to whatever you made it on there. We can do that.
See, there you go. I like the idea of a pen name being only a few letters off of your real name. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I think that's a fun idea.
Oh man, I don't know what I would go with because people have butchered my name so many times, anyways. So I don't know if
I'm
I could come up with an original one.
I'm Kyle Ront's Lithcart. There you go. You just switch the. There you go.
You go with it. Nobody will ever figure it out.
Exactly. Um, I know you talked about Lawrence Block, but like, what are some other? Have you found other authors that really like influenced you or like pushed you in your writing?
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot, but I think the story that really kicked it in my brain and got me to notice it, and I told him like in a DM one time because I have an arc of his book that's coming out and it's fantastic. But Richard Thomas, and he he had a story, and I read it in the Lost Highways, but he's just got this way of describing things, and his new one is like a cosmic horror. There's a sin eater, and it's like this. It goes to this wasteland with all these weird animals, and it's just his descriptions. And I think that that's the one that kicked it in my brain. And I like his collection, Spontaneous Human Combustion. I read that and I loved it. But Richard Thomas is one, and Stephen King, like I said. But um, as far as the crime, though, Dennis Lehane, always
Oh
been a
yeah,
big fan of his, and all his novels and his short stories as well. So I don't know. I could name 1,000 people whose work has influenced me in some way or another. And a lot of the people that I've become friends with on Twitter, that I interact with, that are like, "Hey, good job," the encouragement, but also just
yeah,
reading other people's work. And then when you have an actual like conversation with them on social media, it kind of makes it more real. Like, yeah, this is a real human being whose work I've read. I'm never going to have a conversation with Stephen King, probably. You know,
you never know.
so
You never know.
yeah, well, he's big time. He's going to go places, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, he's going to have a household name, I think, and he'll have a probably have a pseudonym somewhere too, and he'll
yeah.
do well with that too.
Are multiple ones if you believe all the rumors.
Yeah,
I feel like there's always every now and then there'll be a writer come along and like, is this him under a name? Which I feel like it's got to make that writing feel.
right. I should probably throw Richard Thomas's book name out there. It's called Incarnate, and it
Okay,
comes out September 10th. But yeah, it's amazing.
okay, I
That's
got to read it. Like I want to read his collection too because I haven't read that either.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's so good. That's gonna be September 10th is a big day because Laird Barron's got a collection coming out. Brian Evanson's got a collection coming out. So
Oh yeah,
that's a and that's
it's
the
gonna be
day
a
we're
great
moving
day.
into our new house too. So things are gonna go horribly wrong for us, I think. But maybe I'll write a story about it. Something
There you
weird's
go.
got to happen with all those people coming out with weird books and collections. So
See, in the middle of the move, you're gonna get your inspiration for your cosmic horror story. You're
yeah,
like, I'm not gonna be able to do it, but then you'll see.
yeah. The new house is haunted.
There you go.
Yeah. That would be our fault though. So I don't know what we did to make it happen, but yeah,
See, I like that
maybe I can
idea
write a
too.
story
That
about it.
like it wasn't haunted before. It wasn't something waiting on you, which is usually the case in haunted house stories. Like you brought it with you somehow, and it
Yeah. It was the floor color that we chose or the countertop or something. And that's what, angered whatever thing is going to come after us.
you did the shiplap thing that everyone in
Yeah.
Waco does, and now the house wants to hurt you. Well, thank you again for coming on here. I
Yeah, thanks
appreciate
for
it.
having me.
And everyone listening or watching, like, check out, go to Punk Noir Press and check out, Silence is Deafening and A Perfect Crime. They're great.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's good talking to you.